Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. The video I'm about to show you is different than the videos I normally do. It's actually a live Perk membership. For $3.99 a month, I do 5 of these 1-hour mentoring Q&As, and you can sign up and, become a Perk member. Perfect for gardeners that have a lot of questions. I stay on for an hour and answer any question you have about vegetable gardening. For each of that 1-hour sessions, I also have a light subject. The one today is really about using alfalfa in the garden. What are the benefits of alfalfa? Yeah, that was easy for me to say. What are the benefits of alfalfa and why are they good to use in your garden? So as I'm taking the questions for the mentoring Q&A, I'm also talking about a light subject. So this video may not be for you, but if you're interested in having some support, having somebody you can talk to live at least 5 times a month for an hour, ask garden questions, maybe you'll be interested in the Perk memberships. And you can join by just checking any of my videos, look in the video description, there's links in there, or just go to my YouTube page, The Rusted Garden, and hit join. So here is one of the 1-hour sessions of the mentoring Q&A. All right, looks like things are working on my end. Today's light subject is going to be on using alfalfa as a fertilizer. And then there's a couple other things that I wanted to show you. Looks like there are only a couple people here. Thanks, Michelle. And let's just wait a minute. So if you guys have questions, please toss them out there now, and then we'll get started. I'm doing some seed starting indoors. It's way too early for that. I'm doing it for a future video, but I want to show you something interesting about that plant. I think it'll give us a good idea of how to maybe kind of tweak how we grow our seed starts, our transplants for next year. All right, seems like more people are rolling in. Any questions right now, or I can just get started with talking about alfalfa. All right, let me just do a quick review of what alfalfa brings to the garden. Is it okay that my garlic has 6-7 inch sprouts already? That is like the most common question I get, and it's 100% perfectly fine. Because you're putting in the garlic now, and you probably have noticed that sometimes if you keep garlic cloves in the refrigerator, even at that 40-ish degrees, they still sprout. So because it's still warm, your garlic is setting out roots, it's sending up some greenery, it is going to get beat up. Don't worry about it. It's going to turn yellow, it may die off. Doesn't matter. As long as that bulb or that clove has established roots, come next spring, it's going to send out all new greenery. That's when we're going to hit it with water-soluble fertilizer and take care of it. But for right now, it's perfectly okay. Caroline, welcome from New Hampshire. Toss out a question since it's your first time making it, or making a live session. So, and then I'll get to the questions, but let me find my information here on alfalfa. So when it comes to organic granular fertilizer, the stuff you buy in a bag, it's dry, you sprinkle it down. It's expensive as heck. I guess I could say hell, right? That's not bad on a big scale of things. It's expensive, and you go to the big box stores and you see all these fertilizers. They're anywhere from like maybe $1 a pound, depending on how big of a bag you buy, to almost $3 a pound. That is just way too expensive. They mostly have all the same ingredients. Some of them even probably have alfalfa in there. If you buy a small 4-pound bag of alfalfa, 6-pound bag, it's going to cost you anywhere from $10 to $15. Way too expensive. You can go to the feed stores, Tractor Supply Company, any farm feed store, anything like that, and just buy the 40-pound bag. 40 pounds, it's going to cost you somewhere between $18, $25, well below $1 a pound. It is a great organic fertilizer. Now, when it comes to your garden, if you're using the chemical fertilizers, not much benefit. You shouldn't overuse and abuse those anyway. A couple of times in your garden's fine. When you use the organic granular fertilizers, it feeds the soil a little bit. Why that stuff is thrown down, because it's not even composted. It has to break down from microbes. But it doesn't add to your soil structure. It doesn't bring organic matter the chemical types, the organic granulars, are just sort of like supplements and vitamins. So they feed your plants, take care of your plants. Does not take care of the soil. You need compost for that, organic matter. So when you're selecting the organic fertilizers, just keep in mind they do nothing but throw in some NP and K and some other stuff. So don't get fooled by the fancy labels you see everywhere. Alfalfa, just as good. It comes in pellets. When the pellets get wet, they swell and they break into little flakes. You can scratch them into the surface of your soil. You can do whatever you want with them. They're going to break down over time with the microbes. They're going to feed your garden. How do you start your onion seed sets or bulbs? What kind of fertilizer do you use? So I start my onions, actually, I have videos on it. I just happen to have this here and it says red onion because, I don't know, maybe I'm psychic. So I fill this with soil, put a whole pack of onion seeds in here. They go under my lights sometime in probably January, because these get out into March, late January, early February. I let them, once they germinate, grow 8 weeks in here now, not longer. Take them outside, let them get used to the outdoors for about a week. And then I just pop all the soil out, break them apart, put my finger in about this far into the soil outside, put in the onion transplant, and I'm good to go. When you talk about and they're kind of like growing your onion bunches when you get, onions banded together, but you grow them indoors. The benefit of doing it this way is that the plants believe that they're still first year plants. So they tend to have better, what's the right word? Better chance of them bulbing up into a nice onion. Sometimes when you buy the sets, the dried little onions, or even some of the bigger bunches, sometimes the plants think they're going on their second year of life, and that's when they put up a seed stalk and they don't really form a nice bulb. So by doing it this way, the onion believes their first year. In the first year, they set a nice big onion bulb. That's what we want. If you keep them in the ground, come the next year, they put up that big flower stalk. And then for fertilizer, I'm doing a lot of videos now on setting up my garden. I'm just putting down sometimes alfalfa, mostly compost nowadays, and then I do water them in with a water-soluble fertilizer. And then as they're growing, I will, give them something water-soluble wise if I feel like it's needed. All right, so the alfalfa, so buying the bags of the 40-pound bags of alfalfa pellets is like buying one big bag of organic granular fertilizer. Animals don't eat the pellets. I'm in the process of finishing a video today that shows you how I set up my beds. Alfalfa is going to be in there. All right, 1 second. So alfalfa's general NP and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium ratio is like a 2.5, somewhere between 2 and 3 for nitrogen, about a 1.5 to 1 phosphorus, and a 2 to 3 potassium. Not super high in phosphorus, but still the idea is that you're giving the plants what they need. You can just add in more alfalfa. It will increase the amount of NP and K in a particular area of your garden. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good. For 20 bucks, let's say $21, you get a 40-pound bag, and you can set your soil up now. You can use it in the spring. You can use it at different times. Now, the thing that's cool about alfalfa, and I can never pronounce anything, but alfalfa has a growth hormone, and this is scientifically proven. You can look it up. Just look up growth hormone alfalfa. As the alfalfa decays and breaks down, your plants absorb this growth hormone. It helps them grow, obviously, and it gives them an advantage over some of the other organic granular fertilizers. So regular use of the alfalfa pellets over the season provide that growth hormone. And I think it's called triacontanol, if I'm pronouncing it right. It's triacontanol. Triacontanol. I can never figure out where to break the word up. Anyway, proven scientifically, available. It also has other things in it. It has calcium, magnesium, sulfur just really good stuff, other micro elements, and you can really save money and get the benefit by using the alfalfa. So let me get back to the main screen here, see if there's any questions. All right, so $19.99. So the price is actually coming back down. Tractor Supply Company. It's really worth using. You can heavily handed put it down now in the fall, let it break down. It does have to be broken down by microbes to have, the fertilizers released so that the plants can use them. The microbes change organic matter into an elemental form, NPK, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, where the plant roots can absorb it. So putting it in now helps your soil get conditioned and ready for the spring. Putting it down in the spring, it's going to take some time for that to break down, but what you have is the alfalfa from the fall ready to be used. You have the additional alfalfa that you put down ready to be used for a good part of the summer, the following year. If you have lots of compost, you really don't have to use anything, but we tend not to be able to make tons of compost. And a good amount of compost on your soil, just a side note, is really 4 inches in the fall or the spring, however you want to do it. But I use, in the video that's coming up, I use wood ash, alfalfa, some of my compost, and just fresh cuttings of chopping of leaves and grass. Goes on my beds. They're put to sleep. Any questions on that? Let me pause a second. I think the hardest thing for new gardeners is when you go to the big box stores, you see like plant tone fertilizer, garden fertilizer, vegetable garden fertilizer, tomato fertilizer, leafy green fertilizer, fruits and green fertilizer, flower fertilizer, bulb boosting fertilizer, and then NP and K numbers are going to vary. For our use, it's not really that significant. You want to know what's in there. Like some may have a higher nitrogen. Okay, that might be good to use. Some have a lower nitrogen, higher phosphorus, potassium. Okay, that might be good to use. But you and I don't really have to be that sensitive to the needs of the plants. It just doesn't make sense because in our small gardens, we're always adding different stuff. So the actual soil that it's growing in may vary bed to bed. As long as you're putting in a organic granular or using a water soluble, you're getting the main ingredients to your plants. As long as you're putting in the organic matter, chopped leaves and grass at some point, really great compost if you can make it, one or the other or both, it adds to the soil structure and it puts in more NPK and all the other nutrients. So you're always adding that in there. Paying a lot of money per pound for really fancy bags of fertilizer, if you want to do that, it's great. And if it works, it's great. But just know what you're paying for. When you see stuff like, I'm trying to think of a name, but different bag stuff will say stuff like True Biotics, adds in microbes, brings in these specialized microbes, a list of all this stuff. That stuff's already in your soil. Microbes expand and grow at a crazy rate. So as long as you have organic matter and moisture in your soil, 99 out of 100 times you have plenty of microbes and you already have the microbes these fertilizers are saying that you need. If you feel like the microbes make a difference, maybe buy a bag of that, sprinkle it on the soil, put your compost organic matter in there, the microbes will multiply and you'll have them in there. But I wouldn't recommend buying more expensive fertilizers just because that is in there. Do you do anything special for planting shallots? I actually don't plant them anymore. I get a little bit of a harvest. I have not just been able to find them where they're kind of inexpensive. They're kind of pricey. So when I'm planting them, and I tend to plant them similar to garlic, or was similar to garlic, I don't do anything special. But they never really formed great for me, so I just kind of got away from it. Anyway, aside from my potential butchering of the hormone, the plant hormone that's in alfalfa, it's there, and it really does kind of make a difference. You can use this in your container soil too. Use it a little bit differently, but get it in now, water it in, let it break up, kind of mix it through the soil of your containers, and just let it sit there until next year. All right, so that's the quick overview on alfalfa. What are your thoughts on mycorrhizal fungi as something to be added to the soil when planting? So a lot of that is already there. If you can find it in a bag, if you feel it's worth it, and if it's not expensive, I would recommend it. When I go out into my garden and I lift up the shredded wood, you see all these white fibers going. That's the mycorrhizal fungi. Similar to how the mushrooms spread and stuff like that. Don't know enough to say it's that one way or other. But you've got microbes, the fungi growth, you have mushroom growth. They're all related. They're already in your soil. It's not like these additives, so to speak, aren't already in your garden. Good to add maybe into containers, that helps. But container soil is kind of a different beast. It's just not your earth where you have all the different layers of microbes and all that kind of stuff. So I think that, yes, to answer your question, I think that it is beneficial. I think that you want it. That's part of the reason why you don't want to overly disturb your soil. But I also think a lot of it is already there. So Karen, for onion seeds that are best for Wisconsin Zone 4, I don't know. But onions, you want to look up the growing zone. Let me get back to the main screen. You want to look up growing zones for onions, and it's not your gardening zone. That's different. So just your gardening zone 4. But onions are short day onions, intermediate day onions, and long day onions. And as you go up towards Canada, you get more daylight. You want the long day onions. Onions bulb based on the length of sun. So that's why, like, if you grow onions now in a greenhouse, they're not going to really bulb, or you're going to need short day onions because you have less sun. Anyway, to keep it simple, you just say what type of onions or what onion zone do I need for, did you say Michigan or Wisconsin? Missed it, but you know what I mean. And it will tell you what you want. And then you're going to look for short day onions if you're in a short day area, intermediate or, in between onions, or long day onions. So more questions, of course, put them out there. So I wanted to show you something that I think is interesting. And so I'm starting plants now. This is not the time to start plants here in Maryland. This is for an upcoming video. This is a zucchini plant, and let me move this, water's dripping. This is a zucchini. What is important is taking a look right here at this root. See how it came straight down? It's starting to branch. It's dripping water, so I don't want to get it on my keyboard. But you can see that it's branching out up here too, and it would branch out really far. Your direct seeded plants send a root out that is from here to here, like probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 times bigger than the upper green growth. When we start seeds indoors, we tend to want this really big plant because we think we're getting this huge jump on the season because we've got this massive zucchini plant. But the roots get all constrained, they're really small, and they don't support the plant. So you don't want to overgrow your seed starts indoors for a long time to get big growth and small roots. The plants are going to suffer out there. I've experimented on it. I've been talking about it. It's 100% true. This plant, eventually this is going to die off. And over the 4 weeks that maybe you grow this transplant indoors, this root would go way down here, spread out, and it's pulling in moisture and nutrients. That's why when you have like a big zucchini plant that's been growing too long indoors and you put it outside and maybe you put a seed in right next to it, that seed takes 5, 7 days to germinate. Your plant that you put in is kind of just sitting there struggling. That plant germinates and takes off, and it catches up to or sometimes surpasses your transplant because it was able to set this root down and really pull in the nutrients. The more roots you have, let me fix that. All right. The more root system you have for your transplants, the quicker they establish and spread out, and the more quickly you get upper growth. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of people are conditioned to try and grow these really big transplants for weeks and weeks and weeks indoors, and they have little root balls. And that doesn't really do much for you putting your transplant out. We'll be talking more about that in a Q&A. We'll be doing seed starting in January or something like that. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting, and it just was a really good example when I was checking on the plants today. I'm wondering what would happen if you just chopped and dropped the plants from your fall cleanup instead of composting them. Nothing bad. So I just did a video on should I compost diseased leaves? Excuse me. And the short answer is you can compost them, you can throw them out, whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Diseases float in from different places. So if you chop up all of your your weeds too, but all your plants, leave them on the ground, they stay moist, they're just going to break down and become part of the soil. When you compost it, sometimes it happens faster. But I do that for a lot of my plants. I let the leaves dry, the leaves fall down. Maybe I get rid of the stems because I just don't like how it looks, throw them into compost. But nothing, bad's going to happen because you leave the debris behind. A lot of times we think that if the plant has diseases, the leaf diseases, then we have to clean up the garden and throw everything away. It can't be composted. That's just not true. I probably do a combination of what you're saying. Some stuff I just leave behind. Other stuff is pulled out and composted. It just depends on how much time I have and if the wheelbarrow is with me as I'm walking down the space. Any other questions? Please put them out there. We are at only at 12:30, so I got time. What I'm doing now, the video is going to be coming out. And bottom line is if you have space, you can have tons of compost. 4 inches of compost down in the fall, more in the spring or just in the spring, whatever, is really probably all your plants need. I've been talking about how these tomatoes that grow in my compost area are just magnificent and beautiful. I don't water them. I don't spray them. They're spectacular. Nature knows what to do. So tons of compost. You can just, clean up your beds a little bit, throw down the compost, you're good to go. However, what I tend to do is a combination of 4 things. You don't have to do all 4 parts. It's going to be in the video. I put down alfalfa, and the video will show you how heavily I put it down. I put down wood ash. Wood ash has a high pH. If you throw down clumps, you're going to affect the pH of your soil. Just sprinkle it across. Great source of potassium, calcium, other micronutrients. Those are 2 resources. Compost and wood ash are 2 resources that are pretty much free for me, except for the effort of, burning and collecting wood and composting. That's how you can save money. Alfalfa is a cost, fairly inexpensive, adds in the growth hormone, also adds in additional N, P, and K, and other fertilizers. So I might put down alfalfa, some of the wood ash, some compost, and then on top of that, a good 4 inches of chopped up leaves and grass that I'm collecting now. And that's my bed. It just goes to sleep. You let it sit there. These are beds that I'm using for transplants. Whatever, hasn't decayed, I'll just move it to the side, create my planting hole, set that all up, which I'll be talking about again in 2026. Put in a transplant, move whatever's left around it, water it in. The plant is good to go. First couple of years, if you're just getting started and maybe you have heavy clay soil, you have soil that needs some work, it's okay to turn it, but you don't have to turn your soil every year. It's just not necessary. So now I do a lot of what I just described. If I'm planting seeds there, I tend to use just more of the alfalfa and compost and let it be, because that's already broken down. That can be mixed into the soil and I can put seeds in there. And the wood ash too, that's fine. If I'm putting in the leaves and the grass, that doesn't really break down in the 4 or 5 months over winter. So you would have to clear that out of the way. You don't want to be planting into that. But it's just, I mean, a subtle difference. That's the routine that I like. It's not what I think everybody should do, but between those 4 things, organic matter, you want to definitely use compost or the fresh cuttings. And then if you want to use alfalfa and wood ash, you can use that too. I mean, however you want. The bottom line is all that I'm really buying is the 40-pound bags of alfalfa, not the $8, $10, $12 4-pound bags of other fertilizer. You're going to go broke that way. You don't need to do it. That stuff might be, and if you like a certain product, go ahead and buy it. But when you put the plant into the planting hole, maybe put a tablespoon or 2 of that bag stuff you used right in the planting hole, and it targets that plant versus spending all that money and then spreading it everywhere. Use the alfalfa instead. I'm going to stack up hay bales around some garden clippings to try and build a compost pile close to the garden. Maybe make a hotbed in the spring for seed starts. Yeah, I mean, that would work. Let me just think about the question. I mean, you can do a lot with that. I mean, you stack the hay however you want. Some people just do a rectangle with an opening and they put like a sheet of glass over it. And that creates a nice warm space for your transplants if you want to do winter sowing or you want to get your cool crops growing in there too. You can also set it up so that you're putting in lots of green and stuff like that, and it does, heat up. That pile will break down, and you can, just be adding the straw that's falling off into that, so you're mixing it through. But it's kind of fun. It makes sense to have it closer. The hotbed really can happen because of the insulation of the hay or straw bales that you're using. Some people even like to put, it's hard to get it in the winter, but like fresh green clippings, grass or otherwise in a corner of that space. It does heat up and it provides a little bit more heat at night. But I would definitely do it. And then the hay is going to absorb water over the year, begin to break down, probably in 2 years. It's stuff you can just break down and you can put it right on your beds. The next event is on 11/11, 7 p.m. And I'm going to go over the basics of what you need for seed starting indoors. All the events should be, well, I know they are, posted on my YouTube page. You can see what's going on. And in that post now, there is a link that if you click that link, it takes you to my live events on my YouTube page. And then you can see what's coming. And then you can actually click to be notified for them. I know that sometimes notifications don't work for people, but this is the best way to turn on a notification, I think, for an event. I definitely recommend experimenting in the garden. That's how I learn most of my stuff. I do a lot of reading, but experimenting is really the only way to do it. Like, I knew this was true, but if I didn't really see this, it's kind of hard to explain. And I think it's a perfect example of why sometimes you can start seeds indoors now. You're not going to really be able to get them out into your garden. Last year I did experiments where I grew tomato plants, put them into bigger containers. I cut them back so that I had a little bit of growth. I had these massive roots, and that's what I transplanted. Those plants took off and did really well versus, I don't have any containers here, versus tomatoes that were like 10 weeks old in these little cells, which I can keep alive with fertilizer, and they look great growing under my grow lights, but the root system is way too small. It's really about an outstanding root system, and then your plants going into soil temperature that is right for those plants that get your transplants to take off. My Brussels sprouts are forming small sprout buds. Should I trim or do anything to encourage them to grow larger? People top the Brussels now so that energy isn't going into more upper growth and you get more side growth. And that's tried and true. That's pretty much all I would do. Sometimes it depends on the variety that you have of the Brussels. But just like anything, if you top a pepper plant, it gets more side shoots. If you top your kale, it's going to get more side shoots. So the energy will go into them. It's just not always necessary depending on the variety and the length of your growing season. And, speaking of experiments, if you have more, and this is really how I do it. So if you only have one plant, it's tough. If you have a couple of plants, top half of them, or whatever you want to experiment on for your garden, do it to half of them. If it comes to like tomato pruning or a certain fertilizer at a certain time, or maybe you want to use a 0-10-10 water soluble with more potassium and phosphorus to see if more flowers and fruit come to your peppers, experiment. Keep half in the style that you always do, and then add in your change to another half, and then just take notes and see how it works. I'm probably going to make this private Perk Q&A public in a couple of days, just so that people that aren't part of this can see what a mentoring Q&A is like. So ask some really great questions to make you look smart. This is a good question already because I saw discouraged in bugs. When you first started gardening, did you ever get discouraged by bugs, etc., destroying certain plants and become afraid to retry? Zook plants were all destroyed by vine borers. You do get discouraged? The answer is yes. I think all gardeners go through this. And part of what I want to bring is my experience, and you get the experience of everybody else here. One, to know, you're not alone. Number two, part of what I teach is that vine borer is always going to come. But zucchini can be planted here in Maryland, just for example, in May. It's going to grow. You're going to get some zucchini. You can plant again, 4 or 5 weeks later in June. That plant's going to be small. The other one might still be around. Those two plants do pretty good. You get some, then the vine borer comes and kills them. If you plant zucchini again in July, you're planting through the cycle of the vine borer, because it doesn't want to go after a little plant like this, because it would lay eggs. The larva would kill the plant off. The larva would die. So it's going after your bigger zucchini plants. And then the vine borer goes away. So you can plant through the life cycles of pests and diseases with a lot of your summer crops that grow quickly. Zucchini can be ready in like 35 days from germination. Same with cucumbers and other, crops. So to answer your question, yes, don't let it stop you. Have a plan, and this is what I always recommend, that you're managing down damage. You can't prevent the vine borer from showing up. You can't prevent diseases from showing up. But you can manage down the damage so that you're still getting harvests, and then you can keep planting so that you get harvests, all the way through. Like my tomatoes are ridiculous now. We had a frost last night. They didn't get killed off by the frost, but the ground is cold. They're not growing, but they get all the leaf diseases. I manage them with sprays, and they're just spectacular. Not because, I have the magic touch. It's just because my plan involves, I know what shows up. This is what I spray. It's pretty much routine, except August when I get burned out and then my garden, goes to hell. And then I get my energy back, I fix it, and we're back on track. So that's what you're always doing, is looking for the problems that come up, and then you think, okay, how can I manage this better? Just don't have the goal of 100% eradication of disease and pests. It's just not going to happen. Should we use the alfalfa pellets in the GreenStalks to put them to bed also? So GreenStalks, I wouldn't, so like my containers and the GreenStalks are vertical towers. I wouldn't use them if you're keeping the soil in there right now. But if it's been 2 or 3 years and you're going to dump it out and do a refresh, that's typically what I would do. I would add the alfalfa into that so that, you know, you're dumping it out, you're throwing in the alfalfa, you're soaking it down, they break up, you're putting in your amendments, you're putting it back into your containers or your GreenStalk, and it's there going forward. GreenStalks, because of the limited space and the heavy growing you do in there, they're really being supported by the water-soluble fertilizers. So the alfalfa on the top really isn't going to do much. Mixed into it, it's going to, you know, be nice for the growth hormone and stuff like that. But otherwise, I'm just really using the water-soluble fertilizers for that 2 or 3 years until I dump everything again, refresh it, and put it back in. If you can't do garden cleanup now, what's the disadvantage of waiting until closer to spring? Asking for a friend. Sure. For a friend. It's nothing really, except for if you're using the alfalfa or organic granular, you kind of want to get that in now so that it breaks down over the 4 or 5 months. If you were going to do cleanup and you're putting down compost in the spring, that's going to be immediately available. If you're putting down the organic granular and alfalfa, it's just going to be some time before that breaks down and gives to your plant. But there's not a huge difference. If you were to, if you wanted to add organic matter and you don't have a lot of compost, putting down the grass clippings and the chopped leaves now give 4 or 5 months for the worms and stuff to get in there and eat them and bring them into the soil. So maybe what you're losing is 4 or 5 months of probably more of the worm activity and the microbe activity to break things down. But the hardwood, the wood ash, the compost, all that really doesn't matter fall or spring. I have some broccoli plants still going. Temperatures tomorrow night will reach as low as 21°F. Should I cover them? Yeah, so the thing with broccoli is if it's just leaves, they're probably going to be okay. But if where the stem meets the earth and then you have the roots right in there, freezes really hard, that can kill the plant. But more importantly, if you have a broccoli crown forming right now and that freezes, it can kill the crown. You'll get brown spots and stuff in there. It's the crown itself is not as resistant to the cold as the leaves. Where should someone get slug bait? Any better place than any other? No, so for the slug bait you don't want, I forget what it was called, but, and it's hard to find out anyway, but if the ingredient starts with META, meta something, that's really bad poison. You don't want that. You want to find the slug baits that are sulfur based or iron phosphate. That's better. And they come in pelleted form. They can resist the rain, and you'll see the active ingredient or main ingredient is sulfur or iron phosphate. I think Corey Slug Bait has it. Just about all of them use that now. And I would just go by price. Look it up, see what's on Amazon, see where you can buy it. If it's at your local stores, it's pretty common. Just go by price and pick out, you know, what you want. But you definitely want sulfur or iron phosphate as the active ingredient. All right, we're at 12:48. Glad to hang around for the full hour if there's any more questions. But otherwise, I'm done with the information I wanted to present. But you know, throw out what you want to talk about. And it is becoming planting time too. I mean, because the zones are different and temperatures are different, it's hard to say, When I'm doing something, if you're in a similar area, of course, just follow along. Otherwise, you're adjusting earlier if it's warmer or later if it's colder based on what I'm doing. But the principles are all pretty much the same when it comes to, growing a garden. They've been the same for like since the beginning of gardening, really. Organic matter, it's what your garden needs. Compost. And the reason I separate them is you can add organic matter by just layering in grass clippings and leaves. And over time, it gets incorporated. Compost is best because the grass and the leaves are fully decomposed and broken down, and they're in a form that the plants can really use the N, P, and K and all the fertilizer right away. By adding in stuff more as mulch, eventually it breaks down, the worms eat it, they leave castings behind, it's all good stuff, it just takes longer. But a combination of both is best. Your whole garden will thrive and be spectacular just based on organic matter as, a basic cover for mulching and compost. As I do this more and more, I've kind of moved to what I described today. I like getting the alfalfa pellets because it does add N, P, and K and other stuff. It's inexpensive, has the growth hormone. The wood ash from the fire pit has great trace elements and minerals in there, high in potassium. Don't overuse it. Don't pile it in because it can change the pH. But when you're just sprinkling it on across the top once or twice a year, rainwater, your organic matter, your mulching that you put on, your compost that you put on, really regulates and balances the pH. So the fear is people say, don't use wood ash, you're going to, increase the pH and nothing's going to grow. That only happens if you put in like inches and clumps in there. Don't use wood ash on your blueberry plants because blueberries like more acidic soil, so it could impact them. But I have sprinkled light amounts down around there and it's okay. But the more that I do this, I'm sticking with wood ash, alfalfa pellets, regular mulching, shredded hardwood. I like to use, it decays quicker than big wood chips, or grass and leaves, and then compost. On the side, I keep water-soluble fertilizer available. I have the chemical types. I have fish emulsion when it was on sale. I like using AgroThrive, but really any organic water-soluble fertilizer is great to give your transplants a boost, great for mid-season. I'll use the chemical types if, like a couple years, I had a frost come in and really devastate and damage plants, so I used that to help them get back on track, went back to my organic ways. But, it doesn't have to be fancy once you get rolling. This was a good group today. I like the topics and I like the questions. And part of like what the Perk memberships are, and I see people come and go, and they come back in the spring. Like, things slow down October, November, December, and January, and then the garden gets back up in whatever, March, April. So some people come back, but you can really use the Perk memberships just to have this group of people helping you out, me as kind of a mentor to help you along, and we just kind of go week to week as whatever I'm doing in the garden, you guys are doing in the garden, we problem solve and we help people out. Alvin, I'm thinking of overwintering spinach in grow bags. I heard you speak of this the other day. Any thoughts? Yeah, so I'm in, again, Maryland Zone 7. Long-standing noble spinach does really well here. I have actually spinach growing behind me to put more transplants out there into some cold frames and grow them. But I have them planted throughout my garden to overwinter outdoors. And I'm assuming you mean outdoors. You can grow spinach inside under your grow lights too, by the way. It'll stop growing really in December because it's too cold, but it survives the freezing temperatures, the significantly cold temperatures here, January and February. And then come March, April, when it begins to warm, I'm harvesting all this spinach early on, and it's great because if I put seeds out in March instead of these plants that overwintered, those seeds are going to take a long time to germinate and grow. But in the meantime, I'm harvesting everything from the fall that overwintered. I put in my new seeds. I would definitely do that.